Imagine waking up in the United States to a breaking news alert. The nation's highest intelligence official, Tulsi Gabbard, is accusing a former president of orchestrating a secret coup against democracy itself. Her televised demands for indictments reverberate through the country, while a tidal wave of critics on social media fire back, calling her statements hypocritical and politically motivated, especially since she ignores another president's brazen attempts to overturn an election. The resulting outrage goes viral, sparking a feverish debate about truth, power, and the fate of American democracy. But how did the world's oldest constitutional democracy find itself here, embroiled in allegations of treason, conspiracy, and the weaponization of intelligence? And what does this upheaval mean for America's role as a global security leader in a time of rising disinformation and polarization? To unravel this crisis, let's rewind to the pivotal moment after the 2016 presidential election. U.S. intelligence agencies spent months investigating, ultimately concluding that Russia had launched a coordinated and systematic campaign to influence the outcome. The evidence was overwhelming: intercepted communications between Russian operatives, trails of financial transactions, and an unprecedented social media blitz aimed at sowing division and suppressing voter participation, particularly among African American communities. These revelations did not emerge in a vacuum. They appeared after exhaustive efforts by the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, and were later corroborated by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee. The Mueller report, running more than 400 pages, laid out with granular detail how Russian intelligence agencies hacked into Democratic email accounts, coordinated leaks, and manipulated public opinion through thousands of fake social media accounts. Over 3,000 pages of declassified documents would eventually reveal the sheer scale of foreign interference. Stories of cyberplots, covert meetings, and influence operations that, for most Americans, remained hidden in the shadows. Yet from the very outset, these findings were met with a wall of denial from then-President Donald Trump. He repeatedly branded the intelligence community's conclusions as a fabrication, a so-called deep state plot designed to undermine his legitimacy, insisting that there was no collusion and no interference. Trump and his allies launched a relentless campaign to discredit America's own intelligence professionals, painting the entire investigation as a politically motivated witch hunt. This rhetorical assault set the stage for a multi-year battle over the credibility of the intelligence community, a battle that has now flared up into a full-blown inferno with Tulsi Gabbard's incendiary accusations. Far from fading into history, these divisions now threaten to tear at the very fabric of trust that binds the nation's institutions together. Fast forward to the summer of 2025. Tulsi Gabbard, a figure known for her controversial stances and unorthodox foreign policy views, now holds the powerful post of Director of National Intelligence. In an explosive appearance on national television, she calls for the criminal prosecution of officials she claims orchestrated a treasonous conspiracy during the Obama administration. Her voice resonates with the crusading zeal of someone determined to unearth hidden truths. There must be indictments of those responsible, no matter how powerful they are, no matter who was involved. For the American people to trust our republic, we must hold accountable those who tried to steal our democracy. Her statements ignite an immediate and ferocious backlash. Across social media, hashtags trend overnight. Accusations of hypocrisy, manipulation, and selective memory dominate the discourse. Critics point out the glaring omission in Gabbard's narrative: President Trump's actions on January 6th, when a violent mob stormed the United States Capitol in a last-ditch effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election. As one user wrote, Tulsi Gabbard is out here calling Obama a coup plotter while ignoring Trump's literal attempt to overturn an election he lost. This isn't about democracy, it's about deflection. The digital fury is relentless. Comment after comment accuses Gabbard of weaponizing her office to settle old political scores, echoing conspiracy theories that have been exhaustively debunked by bipartisan investigations and countless independent experts. Others highlight her controversial history, including her unsanctioned meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in 2017, which drew sharp criticism for breaking diplomatic protocol. Prominent voices in Congress joined the fray. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, a seasoned lawmaker with deep experience in technology and finance, issues a stark warning. It is sadly not surprising that Director Gabbard is weaponizing her position to amplify the president's election conspiracy theories, echoing long-disproven claims and undermining the integrity of the intelligence community. Representative Jim Himes, a former Wall Street executive turned legislator, adds, "Baseless accusations of treason are par for the course for this DNI, but that doesn't make them less damaging. It is a well-worn strategy from the Trump playbook, designed to distract from legitimate concerns." Yet the controversy is not just about personalities or partisan rivalries. It's about the very foundation of how intelligence is used in a democracy. Stanford professor Amy Zegart, a leading expert on national security, cautions. Politicizing intelligence erodes public trust and undermines the intelligence community's ability to provide objective assessments, essential for national security. If people see intelligence as just another political tool, the consequences could be disastrous. The risks extend far beyond America's borders. Bruce Riedel, a veteran analyst at the Brookings Institution, warns that Gabbard's allegations could alienate key allies who depend on U.S. intelligence to protect their citizens. Weaponizing intelligence might push allies to hold back on sharing crucial information, fearing that their secrets could be twisted for partisan gain. This could cripple international cooperation on critical issues like counterterrorism, nuclear proliferation, and cybersecurity. Let's pause for a moment to consider the gravity of what is at stake. For decades, America's intelligence apparatus has been a cornerstone of global security, underpinning alliances like NATO and cooperative efforts against threats ranging from terrorism to cyber attacks. If the intelligence community is perceived as simply another extension of partisan politics, every allied nation, from the United Kingdom to Japan, from Germany to Australia, may begin to question the reliability of information shared by Washington. The ripple effects could be enormous. Slower responses to emerging threats, fractured coalitions, and a world where adversaries exploit mistrust to sow chaos and instability. Domestically, the danger is no less acute. Imagine a future where every intelligence report is viewed through the lens of suspicion, where citizens, lawmakers, and even military leaders wonder whether vital warnings are genuine or just political theater. Amy Zegart underscores, when intelligence is politicized, the nation's ability to make sound policy decisions is compromised. Americans may start to question every report as a possible piece of political performance. The fallout could be profound. Weaker national security, a more cynical and divided public, a political climate so toxic that even the most basic facts become suspect. Decision-makers might hesitate to act on intelligence, fearing public backlash or accusations of bias. In such an environment, adversaries, from Russia and China to rogue actors in cyberspace, would have a field day exploiting America's self-inflicted wounds. But the story does not end with doom and gloom. History shows that moments of crisis can sometimes spark overdue reforms and renewal. Consider the aftermath of the Watergate scandal in the 1970s, which led to sweeping changes in congressional oversight of intelligence agencies, or the post-Iraq War era, when revelations of flawed intelligence forced a painful but necessary reckoning with how assessments are produced and shared. If this latest controversy forces Congress to act, to tighten oversight, strengthen whistleblower protections, and demand greater transparency, the intelligence community could emerge from the firestorm stronger and more resilient. The key is whether leaders choose accountability over blame and truth over tribal loyalty. As Stanford Zegart notes, reform is possible, but it requires a commitment to integrity and a recognition that the stakes are nothing less than the survival of democracy itself. Let's examine the possible futures that could unfold from this crisis. One scenario: the Department of Justice, now led by Attorney General Pam Bondi, launches investigations into Gabbard's explosive claims. Legal experts like Jonathan Turley point out that accusations of treason must meet a very high bar, one enshrined in the Constitution itself. Treason is defined as levying war against the United States, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Very few cases in American history have met this standard. Yet, even the mere act of opening such investigations could deepen the nation's divisions, with each side interpreting the probe's outcome as either proof of corruption or vindication. Another scenario: America's closest allies, rattled by the politicization of U.S. intelligence, begin to limit the information they share. Imagine intelligence agencies in London, Paris, or Berlin quietly withholding details about emerging terror threats or cyber attacks, fearing that their secrets could be leaked or spun for political advantage in Washington. The result? A weaker global fight against terrorism, less effective responses to cyber incursions, and a long-term erosion of trust that could take decades to rebuild. There are international parallels worth considering. In the early 2000s, the United Kingdom's intelligence community faced its own crisis of credibility when reports about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq were manipulated to justify war. The fallout from that controversy led to years of public skepticism, multiple official inquiries, and a lasting stain on the reputation of British intelligence. The lesson is clear. Once trust is broken, it is incredibly difficult to restore. Back in the United States, the weaponization of intelligence threatens to undermine the core foundation of democracy: public trust. If Americans begin to see every intelligence assessment as a partisan club, the nation's ability to respond to real threats will be severely compromised. Policy decisions, military operations, and even basic law enforcement could all become arenas for political gamesmanship rather than objective analysis. But amid the chaos, there are flickers of hope. If Congress and the executive branch seize this moment to enact meaningful reforms, the intelligence community could regain its footings. Strengthening oversight mechanisms, ensuring robust whistleblower protections, and mandating transparent processes for intelligence assessments would all be significant steps forward. Transparency, accountability, and a renewed commitment to nonpartisanship are not just abstract ideals. They are the lifeblood of a functioning democracy. What practical steps can ordinary citizens take in the face of such high-stakes drama? First, remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. It is a living system that depends on active, informed participation. When intelligence scandals dominate the headlines, resist the temptation to accept easy answers or retreat into tribal loyalties. Seek out credible sources, demand solid evidence, and question the motivations behind every explosive headline. Your skepticism is not just healthy. It is essential for the survival of democracy. Second, recognize that the politicization of intelligence is not an abstract, distant threat. It can affect everything from the security of your personal data to the safety of your local community. As global cyber threats mount and hostile actors grow more sophisticated, cooperation among allies becomes more critical than ever. When trust erodes, everyone pays the price. Not just the politicians making headlines, but ordinary people whose lives depend on effective security. Third, push for reforms that make intelligence more transparent and less susceptible to political manipulation. Support leaders and institutions that value truth, even when it is inconvenient for their party or personal ambitions. Insist on accountability from both sides of the political aisle. As history shows, the integrity of the intelligence community is not a partisan issue. It is a national imperative. Let's bring these themes together with a striking fact. Since the year 2020, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has quietly declassified more than 3,000 pages of documents related to the Russian election meddling investigation. These files contain stories of cyber plots, clandestine meetings, and sophisticated influence operations, details that most Americans have never seen. They reveal just how complex and persistent the threats to democracy can be, and how often the real battles for the nation's future are waged not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. There is another layer to this crisis: the impact on America's global leadership. For generations, the U.S. has served as an anchor of stability and security. Its intelligence alliances, from the Five Eyes network to bilateral partnerships with countries like Israel and South Korea, have shaped the world's response to everything from terrorism to pandemics. If America's intelligence system is seen as irreparably politicized, its influence could erode, not just in diplomatic circles, but in boardrooms, scientific collaborations, and military coalitions around the globe. Consider the world of cybersecurity, where rapid information sharing can mean the difference between stopping a ransomware attack and allowing it to cripple hospitals or energy grids. Or think of counterterrorism, where even a brief breakdown in trust can allow a dangerous plot to slip through the cracks. The stakes are not theoretical. They are immediate and real. Looking ahead, several possible futures beckon. In the best-case scenario, the current turmoil prompts a new era of transparency, accountability, and public engagement. Congress could implement reforms modeled on successful oversight frameworks from other democracies, like the United Kingdom's Intelligence and Security Committee or Germany's Parliamentary Control Panel. Whistleblower protections could be expanded, giving brave insiders the confidence to report abuses without fear of retribution. International partnerships could be rebuilt on a new foundation of mutual trust and shared values. In the worst-case scenario, however, the spiral of politicization continues. Investigations become never-ending spectacles, each new revelation weaponized for political gain. Allies drift away, adversaries grow bolder, and the intelligence community, once the envy of the world, finds itself paralyzed by infighting and suspicion. Which path America ultimately takes depends on a handful of critical factors: the vigilance of its citizens, the integrity of its leaders, and the adaptability of its institutions. The system is only as strong as those willing to defend its core values: truth, transparency, and the rule of law. So what does all this mean for you, the viewer? It is a call to action. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never lose sight of the stakes. The battles over intelligence, truth, and democracy are not just headlines. They are the front lines of a struggle that will define the nation's future for decades to come. And here is a final secret. Buried in those thousands of pages of declassified documents are stories of ordinary analysts, dedicated public servants, and unsung heroes who risked their careers, and sometimes their lives, to defend the truth. Their work reminds us that, even in times of chaos, integrity can prevail. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Now we want to hear from you. Is America's intelligence system forever politicized, or can it rebuild trust and regain its global leadership? Share your thoughts in the comments below.